Have you ever wanted an instant garden? Well, I am giving one to my friend today. After touring the GreenStalk facility in Knoxville, Tennessee, I fell in love with their new spring colors, and I really wanted to jazz up the look of my space. But having 5 GreenStalks already, I didn't really need another one. So I decided to get a new lilac colored GreenStalk for myself and gift this one to my friend Natalie. This was the very first one that I got back in 2020. Natalie has been talking to me about the GreenStalk for years, and I decided to give her a friendly push into container gardening by not only giving her my GreenStalk, but also creating the garden for her. The first thing I needed to do was renovate this GreenStalk with new soil. I knew from growing in it that it needed a refresh, and after talking with GreenStalk's lead gardener, Susie, I knew I needed to create a more fertile environment for the plants I'll be growing for Natalie. Although I usually mix old soil with new, I decided to start new for her GreenStalk and for my new one as well. Here's how I filled those planters yesterday. The first thing I'm going to do is mix up the soil. Because I am doing 2 planters, the one that I'm giving to my friend and my new lilac one that I'm so excited about, I decided to mix up a huge batch. And what I'm going to be using is Happy Frog. This is a potting mix. There is a Happy Frog soil conditioner, I learned, but it's different than the potting mix. But the potting mix is what Susie, the lead gardener at GreenStalk, recommends to use. It is not the cheapest thing. Each tier of the original planter will require 1 cubic foot of soil. And each of these bags here is 2 cubic feet. So I did the math. I'm going to need, for 2 full planters, I'm going to need a little bit more than the 4 bags of Happy Frog I have. To make sure that I have enough, I'm going to add Pro Mix, which I bought at my local landscaping company. Typically with GreenStalks, you don't want any kind of wetting agent because it could impede drainage, but I've used this Pro Mix in my GreenStalks for a really long time, and I haven't had any issues with that. So I think adding it with the Happy Frog will actually be a really good combination. The first thing then I'm going to do is to mix all of these in a big wheelbarrow, and then I will start filling the tiers. After I filled this to the top, which I could probably add a little bit extra, I'm going to add a little bit of fertilizer. Now this is where I realized that I had been doing some things wrong all these years with the GreenStalk, is I hadn't been adding enough fertilizer. Happy Frog does have a little bit in it, but I'm going to be adding Garden Tone from Espoma. The folks at GreenStalk use Happy Frog's Jumpstart, but this is what I'm going to be using. And reading the back of the package, it says 2 cups per cubic foot. I don't have enough of this to be able to do that for both of the planters, so I think I'm going to do roughly 1 cup per cubic foot, and hopefully that will be able to be sufficient, adding with all of the nutrients in Happy Frog to be able to support these plants all season. I also needed to figure out what to plant in Natalie's GreenStalk that she wanted and that would serve her and her family. I also wanted to make sure the plants we chose would be manageable for her as a beginner. We sat down together at a local coffee shop, and she shared with me the crops she would like to grow. Most of her requests, like salad greens, tomatoes, and herbs, were reasonable for an instant garden in April, but I had to nix her request for cilantro. Cilantro likes the cold, and it's too late for it. My cilantro in my garden is already bolting, even in early April. But I assured her that she could plant it in the fall. She also wanted to try squash, zucchini, and cucumbers. With this list in hand, I sat down and I laid out the GreenStalk, considering sun, shade, and the root systems of most plants. I wanted to make sure sun lovers like peppers and squash got plenty of light, while the greens got filtered shade, especially heading into the summer. Since I've never planted this exact combination in my own GreenStalks before, much of this is a test, but I'll be curious to see how it works. Now, let's get to planting the GreenStalk. Planting the top tier, I want to put crops that really enjoy the sun. One reason is because this planter will be on a deck, and even though it will have southern exposure and quite a bit of sun, I wanted to make sure that the most sun-loving crops would be able to be at the top if possible. Now, ideally, tomatoes need full sun too, but if you plant a tomato this tall, you're not going to be able to harvest it, and it probably would reach the top of her awning anyway. So I'm going to go with peppers and squash, which love the sun, but also are not going to grow so tall that it's not going to be manageable. The peppers that Natalie said she and her family eat the most are red bell peppers and orange bell peppers and some snacking peppers. Well, I do have some bell peppers that I started from seed. What I shared with her that she didn't know is that green bell peppers eventually turn to red. So I'm going to be planting Emerald Giant. They have grown really well in our climate, and I already had those started from seed myself. The other two I hadn't started from seed in time, so I went to a local garden center and I found two different varieties that I've actually never grown. One is called Pepper Snackabelle Red from Chef Jeff's, and hopefully that'll be the snacking pepper she likes. There is another variety that I like better, but I didn't have time to start those seeds. And then I couldn't find an orange pepper, so I found a yellow one. Hopefully she'll be okay with that. And I only could find them in 6-packs. I don't really know what I'm going to do with the rest of them because we don't eat a lot of yellow ones, but maybe I'll plant them anyway. Maybe we will eat them. Anyway, these are the three that I'm going to be planting in every other pocket, and then I'll put squash plants in between them. When I'm doing any kind of transplanting, I like to mix organic Rev, which is an organic growth stimulant, with water 50-50. And what I do is I just soak the root ball of whatever I'm planting in this Rev mixture. I'm going to go ahead and take the top off of this for now so I can use the top as a staging area. And I'll put that in here. I'm going to take the strongest pepper that I've got because it needs to be planted soon. These are grown in the Epic cell trays, the 4-cell, and you can just see the roots of this. They're not circling. That is a healthy root system. Okay, let's go ahead and dip them into this mixture and just let it hang out there, usually while I am digging the hole and getting it ready for planting. Now this mixture has not been irrigated at all, so I will put water in the bottom of the planting hole, and then after I plant, I will irrigate the whole planter. I've just had that soaking for just a little bit. I'm going to lift it out and put that in the planter. I want to make sure that Natalie knows exactly what I have planted for her. So I got some plant labels off Amazon and this garden marker also off Amazon. I'll label that here so she'll know exactly what's growing. Okay, so this is a good comparison between a pot and the Epic cell tray I just showed you. You can see where these roots are circling down at the bottom. You didn't see that with the Epic cell tray. No worries though, this is not a big deal, but I do want to tease these roots out to get them a little bit where they're not circling that container, and this isn't terrible, but I want to do that before I get them planted. Since the root ball is quite big, I'm going to just transfer some of this soil so I can make sure and get it buried enough. And next we're going to do the yellow ones. Actually, these don't look terrible. These are kind of young, and this will actually do really well because they're not root circling and it's still young, so I anticipate these will transplant very, very nicely. The next crops for the top tier will be squash and zucchini. I actually got a late start on starting these indoors. These are both for me and for Natalie, but you can see they just started to sprout. But because squash and zucchini don't like their roots to be disturbed all that much, I'm going to try to tease them out a little bit and get them in every other tier here so that they can really start taking off in the GreenStalk. Now, if something happens, they don't take off, as usual, they're really easy to start from seed, and I'll just give her some seeds to be able to plant if they don't work out. But since I'm not actually delivering this to her till, a few days from now, I'll probably have time to make sure that they get settled in. One thing you may be wondering is, how are squash going to grow in this amount of space? Don't squash grow crazy big? Well, yes, and I actually am using a couple of compact varieties. Now, compact varieties will still get quite large, but not as large as ones that aren't compact. And also my goal is for these peppers to grow taller while the squash grow in breadth. So the goal is for the peppers still to have plenty of sun while the squash grows around. I've actually never done this combination before, so I'm gonna have to have Natalie send me pictures so that we can see how it works, and I'll be sure to share that with you. But theoretically, I am hoping that this will be a good combination for this top tier. On the second tier, I'm gonna be doing greens mixes. I'm gonna be doing two of my favorites from Johnny's, a premium greens mix and an ovation greens mix. The reason I'm doing these a little bit higher, I'll be doing lettuce further down, is because they can be a little bit more tolerant to heat, but they will also still eventually get some of the shade from the bell peppers and the squash. And plus, they are beautiful. So I think once they do start to sprout, they'll be a beautiful mix for this garden. On tier 3, I'm going to have several different plants, so I have to consult my layout to figure that out. But one thing that Natalie said that she loves and that they eat a lot are cherry tomatoes. I actually didn't grow any cherry tomatoes for myself because we don't eat them at our house, but I did have some seeds. So I started them from seed indoors. They are not ready to be transplanted quite yet. I'm hoping by the time I get this to her, they will be. But what I'm gonna have here is a cherry tomato plant. And then besides that, I'm going to plant basil. Now I'm going to plant a couple of different basil plants, but this one in particular I'm going to plant with the variety Everleaf. Everleaf is from Botanical Interest, that's where I got it, and it doesn't go to seed as easily. And I thought this would be a really good choice for her, so she wouldn't have to worry about having to prune if she's never grown basil before. And then beside that, I will be adding some parsley. I normally start that from seed, but I had already planted them all in my garden, so I bought parsley transplants from a garden center. And then beside that, I'm going to plant a cucumber transplant. Now, I don't typically recommend cucumber transplanting because they don't like their roots to be disturbed, but I just sprouted some and I'm hoping I can go ahead and get that sprout in there, kind of like I did with the squash and the zucchini, and it will be able to take. I chose a particular kind of cucumber called a patio snacker. It's a smaller slicing cucumber, so hopefully it won't take up too much of this space, but if it ends up vining a little bit more than expected, she may need to get the plant support to be able to trellis it on that, but I'm hoping maybe it'll stay fairly compact for her. And then beside that, I will be finishing up with 2 heads of lettuce, and I say heads and I just mean plants of lettuce. The reason I put them together was because lettuce can handle the shade, and I wanted to make it where some of these other plants that needed a little bit more sun, like the cucumber and like the tomato, they could be more facing the sun. And then if she wanted to, she could put the lettuce facing away from the sun and it would still grow just fine and actually may do a little bit better, especially as we head into summer. Maybe it won't bolt as quickly. These Everleaf basil plants, I just started not that long ago. They're still tiny, but I think they're gonna do just fine. And these have been growing in the greenhouse, so they're hardened off and they're ready to be outside. Next I have parsley, and I bought this at a garden center, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parsley plants. I do not need that many. I'm gonna separate them out. I think I've got 2 for this, and they are definitely root bound. So I'm going to tease these out, at least just to get 1. And this is really easy to do. Got 1 hanging on there. Okay, so most of that root is still there. I'm gonna dip it in organic Rev. That will definitely help it, and that will put that in 1 pocket. And next we have the cucumber. This will be the challenge. I've never done this before, but again, if it doesn't take, I can start it over from seed. I have 2 and both of them sprouted. So I'm gonna try to tease them out and just get 1. So I've got both of these in this little amount of soil. So I'm just gonna take these apart. And yeah, they broke out pretty easily. I think this will work. Next I have lettuce, and these are 2 varieties that I grew that are specifically heat tolerant, Muir and Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is the romaine and Muir is more of the leafy lettuce. These I grew in the GreenStalk seed starter cells, and they are doing great. They actually way needed to be transplanted sooner, but I'm gonna do 1 of each here to be able to go next to the eventual tomato. We'll do the Monte Carlo and then we'll do the Muir right beside it. These are like the Epic cell trays. You can see the roots are root pruning, and all I have to do is squeeze. They're definitely less rigid, so I can squeeze them, and then they have that finger hole here at the bottom so I can pop them out. And then you can see that root system. Doesn't it look amazing? Oh, I just love transplanting lettuces in the GreenStalk. This is truly an instant garden when they're this size. She could start harvesting from this the day that I give this to her if she wants to. Okay, so all we have to do now is wait for the cherry tomato seedlings to get a little bit bigger, plant that. Now we're gonna go to tier number 4. Tier number 4 is going to be basically the same plants that I have in tier number 3, except I'm not gonna do cucumber. Instead, I'm gonna do 3 lettuces, and then I'm gonna do a tomato, parsley, and basil. Now, the tomato that I'm using is a different tomato for this tier. It's one of my favorite called Eva's Purple Ball. Although Natalie said they eat a lot of cherry tomatoes, she said they would like a slicing tomato as well. And Eva's Purple Ball is one that I have grown for several years, and they produce so well. It's been one of the easiest to grow in our climate. The tomatoes themselves are about the size of a billiards cue ball. She don't have to worry about getting a full-grown beefsteak type tomato to size, which will be good for her as a first-time gardener. but I feel like this will be a really good option for her to get good amount of these slicing tomatoes in this Eva's purple ball. Now this is quite a large plant. I started it from seed, probably gonna have to remove most of the soil in the GreenStalk to be able to get it in here. But I'm excited that she might be able to harvest this really soon, even before the cherry tomatoes possibly, because those are so much younger. Now the way I'm positioning these, I'm gonna be putting the lettuces on this 4th tier underneath the lettuces of the 3rd tier for the same reason of the shading that I mentioned before. That way, if she needs to have an area that doesn't get as much shade, we're going to do it with the lettuces, not with the sun-loving crops like the tomatoes. So one reason that I'm not doing this tomato directly under the cherry tomato is I really want them to have a little bit of extra room to grow up without competing with one another. So the cherry tomato is going to be over here growing up. The Eva's purple ball is going to grow up here in between the parsley and the basil. And so that should be good because the parsley for sure can take a little bit of shade. Basil will usually find its way to the sun, so I'm not too worried about that. And then as this grows up, it'll also create some shade here for these greens, which will be a good thing. Beside the tomato, again, I'm going to do basil, but this time I'm going to do not the everleaf variety. I'm going to do regular Italian basil. The reason I'm doing that is because while I like the fact that the everleaf basil doesn't go to flower so quickly, I didn't love the flavor as much as I like regular Italian basil, so I wanted to give Natalie the option of both. One everleaf that doesn't go to seed and one that might actually be better for fresh flavor, so she can have her options between them. Sometimes with the organic Rev, soil ends up breaking off of the roots when you're dipping them, and so I'm just taking the soil back and adding it as I'm planting. For this next tier of lettuce, I'm gonna do another one of the Monte Carlo and the Muir, but I actually have one more that was growing in this planter before. It's a reddish type lettuce, and I can't remember what the name is, but I wanted to give her an option of a red lettuce here, and because it's mature, she'll be able to harvest it pretty quickly. For the final tier, I will be doing spearmint, which was one of the herbs that Natalie wanted to have. Also, we'll be adding some more salad greens. For the bottom tier, I'm going to be choosing mesclun mix salad greens. This is mostly lettuces that she will harvest as baby lettuce, and arugula, which is one type of green that she requested that I absolutely love, so I love being able to plant that for her. Also, we'll do another cherry tomato, and we will do another cucumber. I thought that we were just doing one, but I looked at my layout. We're gonna do another. And I think the reason I chose to do the cucumber on the bottom was so if she didn't want to trellis that one, it could vine on her deck if she wanted to. Ideally, you don't like cucumbers to vine on the ground, but it's a deck, so it's not like it would have access to the soil to potentially rot. If she wanted to trellis it, she totally could. But that's what we'll be doing to finish out this GreenStalk at the bottom tier. Let's start out with this other cucumber seed that I had. I'm going to dip it in the Rev. I'm going to put it in between these two lettuces. And if we need to bring the vining part out to the sun, she can do that. Or she can use the wheels and rotate it as she needs to. She really has lots of options when it comes to that. Next, we have 2 pockets of salad greens. I'm gonna choose arugula for both of these pockets. This is a mix from True Leaf Market. It's where I usually get my arugula, and you see I buy the big bag because I use arugula all the time, and it's most cost effective to do it that way. You know what? This parsley is not looking so great. I think it will actually be just fine, but I think I would like to give her a plant that's not looking like that. So I'm gonna get a better parsley plant for that, one that's a little bit stronger. So we did the 2 salad greens, which were those 2. This one will be the cherry tomato that I don't have quite yet. And then after that, we'll do the spearmint. This is already very root bound. This may not make it more than 1 season before it needs to be repotted into another container, but at least for 1 season, it'll be good for the GreenStalk. Looking at this now, my only concern about the spearmint is it being so close to the tomato. It may rob the tomato of some of the moisture that it gets here at the bottom tier, but we'll just see how it goes. I will definitely let Natalie know that she may have to supplementally water these pockets if she notices that the tomato's not doing as well, just because mint can be really stingy when it comes to taking all the water, as can celery, but hopefully this will still be an okay combination. Sometimes the way we learn how things work together is just by trying it, and then we learn what works and we learn what doesn't. I'm definitely trying to set her up for success, but a lot of this is new since I've never planted all of these combinations together in one GreenStalk. Okay, this final one is going to be the mesclun salad greens. The final thing I'm gonna do is one last water. I'm gonna take my hose with the mist function and especially water where I planted the greens so that I can make sure the top of the soil is saturated for those greens to be able to sprout as seeds. And then I'm going to fill the water reservoir here to be able to get the entire GreenStalk saturated. Because I hadn't watered the soil ahead of time, the only water that these plants are getting are what I used with transplanting. So I want to saturate the entire soil, and when it's full, it will naturally go out. Every tier will be evenly watered with this patented watering system. So the last thing will be watering and then waiting for those cherry tomatoes to get large enough where I can plant those. I am so excited for Natalie to be able to grow her own food this year. And my secret goal is for this to be her gateway into gardening, and that she will find as much joy in growing her own food as I do. Now, if you're looking to purchase a GreenStalk, I always let my email subscribers know about sales first. To make sure you know when the next sale is, click the link in the description. This is an opportunity for you to get my beginner's guide to growing in a GreenStalk for free when you use my discount code to buy your next GreenStalk. But until then, enter your email address anyway, and we'll make sure to send you information on when the next sale is. But if you don't want to wait, you can always use my discount code Jill10 to get $10 off your order of $75 or more. And that code and link will also be in the description below. And for more on growing in a GreenStalk and what I've done over the past 5 years, check out my GreenStalk playlist next.